Paxton Arnold is an entrepreneur and a Chicago native and joins me now about this spike in crime. And historically, Chicago sees this spike in shootings and murders in the summertime. But where do you really peg the root of this violence? Such a big spark of violence.
I mean, Chicago is, especially in the summertime, Chicago is probably, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful cities in the country. Also, Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in Chicago, especially when you talk about people of color, African Americans on the south and west sides of Chicago.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spot Real Talk. My name is Tiara.
I'm LaWanda.
I'm Tiffany.
I'm Ron. And with our special guest,
Aaron Paxton Arnold. Thank you for having me.
He's a native Chicagoan, and he's going to add some more insight. I love to have him. He's here. So we're going to get right into things in just 1 second.
Baby, I know where the last one burned you. Know that ain't cool. Wanna show you how I'm nothing like him. Swear that's the truth. So you can't trust that
All right, we're back, and as always, we're talking about The Chi on Showtime. This is season 3, episode 3, titled Bust Down. And like Ron said, we are glad to have somebody from Chicago that can give us some perspective, because we have even last week we were questioning some of the terminology, some of y'all slang, so it's just good to have somebody here that's familiar.
And not to mention to help me out, because it's usually 3 against 1.
Right.
Yeah, it's all these sisters and stuff. And Aaron is my homie too, so I know he's pretty capable of hanging with us.
I'm gonna make sure I hold it down. I appreciate y'all.
Okay, well, chime in as you feel. You have something to say, just jump right in.
Hey, but before we do, can you give us a brief few seconds of who you are, Aaron, and what you do?
Yes. So if you see my background, it says Kenwood Academy. That's the high school I went to in Chicago. So, I had to represent. Got my Chicago Bears hat on. I'm ride or die Chicago. I left Chicago in 1995 when I graduated from high school. When I graduated from Florida A&M University, I went back for a year and a half when I worked, and then I left to move to New York and then subsequently Atlanta. And the reason why I say that is because I still have a bitter taste in my mouth as it relates to my final kind of year in Chicago, because it just took so many good people. Even coming back home from college, it took so many good people. So to see a show like The Chi on TV, and for me, the authenticity of it, even though it's 20-something years later, it still kind of reminds me to an extent of how I grew up, and then some of the things that I was going through in high school that are still very much so relevant. So, and with that being said, I speak all over the country on entrepreneurship and social political issues. I was on one of the morning shows here in Atlanta for a while. I guess you could say I am a national media contributor. So I've contributed on topics of the ills plaguing Chicago for like CNN and MSNBC and so forth. And, I'm just happy to be here and represent my city. I love how I grew up, and everybody always focuses on the violence that, kind of plagues Chicago, which I understand, but there's so many amazing, beautiful things about the city, especially on the south, the west side, which is where most of us reside. And so I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Good to hear it, man.
All right.
I'm glad you could join us.
Definitely.
Yeah. Excuse my wine. It's Sunday though, so this is what I.
We drink on the show. We drink on the show. We do happy hour and all that. I'm drinking tea right now, but normally I have wine.
I got nothing. I got to keep my head.
Yeah. All right, for sure.
All right, Tiara, what's up?
All right, well, let's jump right into the episode. It looks like this week it picked up right, kind of that situation where the boys rolled up on Nook last week. Yeah. And so this is like the rest of the story behind what happened. And we thought that, Kevin had manned up and he was going to go up in there looking for Keisha. This week, he got shut down.
Yeah, ain't no getting past a gun.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
But he showed a lot of heart, though. He did.
He did.
He stood up to do, and he demanding to see his sister. And of course, Kev had to get back down. Jay kind of talked some sense into him, like, let's just come back. Let's find another way.
Yeah.
And so we seen later on in the episode that Jake actually got his brother Trig involved in the situation when he asked him, since he is familiar with the gangs, Could he possibly, you know, go and check things out with at Nook's house? And we thought that it was like a trap house is what he called it. But it looked like it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Definitely.
I guess the theme is this season is going to be about trafficking. So that was that's what was going on in the house, and that was kind of, I didn't expect that either. I really thought it was going to be drugs involved.
Yeah,
me too. Shocking to see.
Right.
Yeah, but I like Trig though. You know, he makes up his mind and he's going to do something. He comes strong, you know, and he's got his honey with him, and I like her, you know.
Bonnie and Clyde, right?
Bonnie and Clyde.
Listen, he wasn't going to do nothing unless the money said so. That's really clear who's running the show.
And she was double packing too, so you know she was on top of it. I like that.
If you're gonna have a ride or die, that's how you gotta be.
Tell me about it.
Right.
True partner in crime.
And I like how a tag team. And I like how Jake rode for Kevin too, because at first Trig wasn't gonna do it. He was like, I ain't going over there unless, you know, I only do that for my family. And Jake was like, Kev is my family.
Yeah, that was
right.
Definitely.
And so, yeah, that was good to see, because last season, Jake and Kevin, they had a lot of feuding going on. So it's good to see that now that they have both transferred to the same school, they've gotten closer and their relationship is a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you know, Trig, he didn't find anything at the house. He didn't find Keisha, but Imani, she was really touched by, you know, seeing all that was going down. And Trig had to keep reminding her, like, we got to keep our focus. But, you know, I can't see how you could roll up in that situation and not feel some kind of way. Seeing like
I feel like she has, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel like she has a background that we don't understand yet with Imani, because she like she was triggered. So I feel like something has happened to her as well.
And you can see a flashback or something when she went into the room where, you know, all that was going on, that little heavy sex scene. I think it triggered her, something, you know, from her past. So she desperately wants to get back to that.
Yeah, either that, or she did also mention, you know, she was like, I could see myself, like that could have been me in that situation.
Particularly like when they walked in, the girl was like, well, if she's here, she's not here on her own will, letting you know that most of these girls are probably victims of trafficking or some other situation. And really taken advantage of and pimped out.
Right.
And I know it's just a show, but like you can't help but think like, dang, this stuff is like really going on in the world.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was thinking, you know, I live in Atlanta, so College Park, right by the airport, and this is like the epicenter for trafficking. And so I was glad that they're tackling that issue, especially when it comes to young Black girls, because no one, you know, as you saw with the support group, no one cares. You know, if it's Becky or Susie, they get the national media attention, but you know, historically, no one has ever cared about what happens to our young, especially women, especially along the lines of trafficking. So I'm glad that Lena and other writers have taken that on for sure.
Me too.
Yeah, I also, you know, I enjoyed the realism of the group. You have it's really strange when we come together as a group, and yet we still can't come together. You know, they were wanting to. I know you're shaking your head, Tiara, but you know,
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, it's you know, it's heart-rending when you see that. I mean, because you know, we are a village, and yet we say it often enough, but when it comes down to actually proving it, you know, we get in the group and we have a problem. We want to
they will vilify Keisha.
Definitely, right.
Yeah, the petty differences. Even though their children had the same thing happen to them when they were killed, the fact that they just couldn't get over it. And this is a living child, person they have the opportunity to save.
Exactly.
Right.
But the petty differences was getting in the way. So.
Exactly.
And one of the persons, the son, was a thief.
Yeah.
Right.
And she was judging Keisha.
Right. And she's judging.
I was like, see.
Yeah, from her social
media site. Yeah.
That group reminded me like of the Black women I grew up around in church. they got their own sins, but they talk about everybody else.
Yeah. Yep, the glass house.
Yeah.
Yeah, glass house, exactly.
It is real.
Yeah, I was really disappointed in that because as much goodwill as Tracy had in trying to bring it together, the other women in the group were very judgmental, and it was like, dang, can't you see that this family is grieving? Like, is this all you have to say to somebody that's going through that situation? And just like talking about the nudity on her Finsta, and I thought that was a good point too, because this is a real thing for a lot of parents that don't realize what their kids are doing on social media. Like, you can think you're doing the best job raising them, trying to provide and working multiple jobs, but there's so many things that can just, go right up under the rug that you don't even notice. And so I felt bad for Nina this episode, because she's really a good parent.
No,
she tries her best.
Yeah, and I felt a little something when Dre and Nina got that little argument. I was kind of hoping Dre didn't leave, kind of work it out, but she stepped out because I guess they both had to get their own space. But it's real. It's what happened. This happens all the time, particularly when it comes to a child. A lot of times relationships and marriages break up when children have gone missing or found dead and things like that, because we just don't, just so much going on. So I really love this episode because it touched on a lot of things that are quite realistic.
And I thought it was a really good point too, how they talked about like how our Black children can't really be free. Like you don't have the freedoms of like a white child who might post these racy photos or do whatever they do and make their mistakes in life. Like, we don't have room for error.
Right. We really don't. Our mistakes are magnified.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have you always have to be perfect, and we understand. It's almost like Black AF. Everything is it's because of slavery. We get that. Yeah. But it holds you to a different standard, but you're still human, and nobody is perfect.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I really like that the young lady that's in Kevin's class now, the young girl that Kevin is in class with, she brought that up because Kevin and Jake was in class chatting and missing out on the lesson, but she was like, "You're a reflection of me. It's only but a handful of us at this school." So
I love the fact how she's quite bilingual. She's in class and she can articulate, but when she steps,
she code switches like all of us do.
Yeah. I thought that was a good point. And Kev, he seems to have a type, because he was really attracted last season to Maisha, and she was really like the really smart person. She was always doing his school projects, and now that he's moved on to this new school, it's this other little smarty pants girl that's kind of like got it going on with the education. She's on point, and I'm like,
I like that about Kev.
Hey,
he likes smart girls. Jake, on the other hand, was like, "Oh, she's bougie." He was over it.
I mean, but you got to look at how they both grew up. Like, Jake doesn't have a representation of that versus, Kev. Like, Kev's character is my favorite character because it kind of reminded me of how I grew up we call it the crib or Chicago. I always said the best thing about where I went to high school is I went to high school with the dope boys and the AP students, and I felt somewhere in between. And I think throughout the seasons, you see the dichotomy of, in particular, of Kevin, how he has to coexist between two worlds. And I love that because that was just always the challenge for me growing up. Is just like, all right, I might have honors classes, a couple of AP classes, but I still got my homies just, doing what they're doing. And those are the people that protect me. So how do I balance both, knowing that I can't go home with that?
Right.
So I enjoy that. I enjoy that part of it, that and just showing the structure that Kev has in his house, with his mom and so forth. So it's dope.
Let me ask. Let me ask
Aaron, the crib is universal.
Yeah.
I want to ask Aaron a question. Because Keisha, had the opportunity to leave Chicago. In your opinion, is that something that you think is more beneficial for young Black kids in Chicago that are trying to make it for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, it's just anything. I mean, you have people that live on the South Side or West Side that have never been downtown, which baffles me. I mean, my senior year, I got into a lot of trouble. I got arrested my last semester of my senior year. I got into a bar fight. I mean, I just had a lot of time on my hands. I was cocky. I got accepted into college, and I thought I was invincible. And so, when you have that kind of mentality, and I was just doing stupid stuff. But You know, I was so ready to leave because, like, I mean, it just took too many people. Like my last year of high school, it just took too many people, especially the summer of 1995. Like it seemed like every week somebody was getting murdered. And then when I came home, one of my friends that went away to school came back and got murdered because he pledged Kappa, and they thought that they saw the shirt and thought it represented a pitchfork, and they shot him. So, you know, I really have a bitter taste. I mean, I love Chicago, but at the same token, I hate Chicago for what it's done to so many people that I know. So, I mean, I was guaranteed I had to get away. You know, even if I hadn't gotten accepted into college, I was still moving to Tallahassee.
Okay.
It wouldn't have mattered, like, because I just knew it was just a certain, in my opinion, the people that I was hanging around, like the mentality. It's just like any place else. You can't change and grow if you don't explore.
That's true.
And so for the first time in my life, when my dad took me to homecoming in 1994, Florida A&M's homecoming, I saw what I could be. I saw what I could become, and I realized I had something to lose. Now, granted, I still did a lot of stupid stuff, but after a while, I was like, I don't want to mess that up because there's something else better for me. And I think when, you know, I tried to get my homies, I was like, look, just come down to Tallahassee and just go anywhere but Chicago. But and I have a lot of friends that stayed, you know, and they're doing all right, they're doing well. But for me, I needed to leave. And even when I came back that year, I didn't really enjoy it, and I was ready to go again. So, and even when I go home now, like my parents, it's hard for me I stay in a hotel now because my parents are just so concerned that I'm not going to make it home. If I make it home, what's going to happen when I'm walking from the car to the house? And I grew up in a neighborhood called Hyde Park, which is considered, I guess, a nice neighborhood. But
I know Hyde Park.
But you still like, you know, Hyde Park is like really weird. So Chicago to me is the most segregated city in America. Most of the black people reside on the south side or west sides, even after gentrification. And, you know, like, for example, where Obama's house is and where Louis Farrakhan's house is, like, used to have housing projects literally probably 2 or 3 blocks down the street from there. And you go around the corner, you might have my high school, and then you go further down to 47th Street. So it was just really weird. Like, even on my block on Cornell, like, you still have University of Chicago built a new seminary school. It's beautiful, but you still have a drug house that's still there. I don't know how, but it's still there. It's been there since I was a kid. And, you know, somebody got murdered last year in the park next door to my parents' house. So, you know, Hyde Park has kind of always served as the gateway to downtown. And so everybody kind of gravitates for it. The thing that makes it a great neighborhood is you have literally all types of people from different social economic backgrounds in one neighborhood. Like, it's really rare. I don't think I've really seen that anywhere else in the country, except maybe like Brooklyn, when Brooklyn was still black. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, they even alluded to it. I think the first episode with the funeral, when Coogie's mom was just like, you know, get out of Chicago, basically, there's nothing here. And I feel her on that. But, you know, everybody can't leave. Everybody doesn't want to leave. So how do you, the question is always, what do you do to counter all of the stuff that's happening? And so people always come to me like, man, what's going on in Chicago? Why is it so bad? And those kids would be my kids. You know, my daughter's 18. And so when I was growing up, I was blessed enough to have both my parents. They still married now. But at least we had the grandmothers. At least we had kind of the OGs in the streets. Like, once they kind of started dying off, then you literally have kids that are parentless or parents that are disenfranchised, that are still kids themselves, raising their children. And it just kind of created a perfect storm of what you see now. So
that kind of brings me back to Ronnie's position. You know, namesake, you know, he's not my favorite character, but he's growing on me a lot, you know. And I really saw him step up this episode, which I'm very happy to hear. And as you said, you know, I believe he found a mentor with Pop's dad. Papa's dad. So, you know, I'm rooting for Ronnie because, you know, he's got a lot of demons in his life. And I think what we're seeing is this growth period in him. And I'm really liking what I see.
Yeah. I mean, it's about redemption. I mean, every time I watch The Chi, like, when I just think of all the episodes, I mean, all the seasons, like, it's really a story of redemption. Even if you look at Jacob Lattimore's character, like I'm enjoying watching his growth.
Me too.
Yep. He's starting to see, and it's funny because like we're so quick to judge, but you know, I mean, he just had a lot of kids early. And if I have a lot of kids early, and maybe I don't have maybe the opportunities, then you fall into that kind of cycle. But he wants, like, I haven't met too many people that don't want to do better. They just don't know how to do better.
Right.
And good point. We have so many constraints. So, and there's no excuse because, you know, I think they said on the show, if you can stand in line for J's, then you know, you can stand in line for something else. But I mean, I'll never blame a kid for taking the wrong path because you're still a kid. Like I almost took the wrong path several times, but I had my dad there in particular and my mom, but I had my dad there in particular to instill enough fear in me that I was more afraid of him than I was the dope boys and gangbangers and so forth. So I always knew I had to answer to my father.
Right.
Everybody doesn't have that and didn't have that. So I enjoy his character and watching that grow.
Well, Aaron, I'm glad that you're here because one of our commenters is from Chicago, and he specifically said, like, please don't, you know, please do the show Shy justice and do my city justice. He didn't want us to just solely concentrate on the negativity that we see in the media time and everything. Because, you know, Chicago was one of my mother's favorite cities and everything. So I know that Chicago has a lot to offer. I have family that's living in now. They're transplants, but they call Chicago home now. So
I mean, Chicago's dope. I mean, you know, if you look at how the city has grown, even as corrupt as Mayor Daley probably was, like he did a lot to really grow the city nationally and internationally. And so, I mean, it's one of the premier destinations globally as far as festivals and food and things like that. Like growing up, like I used to love going to the Taste of Chicago. I always tell people like we have some of the best beaches in the country, man-made or not, it doesn't matter. You know, like the AVP volleyball tour started in Chicago at North Beach. Like one of the things I really love is they film on location. So like where the wedding was, that was the boathouse off of I think was that Washington Park or whatever. But I just remember that was the boathouse, and that boathouse is memorable for me because that's the first time I ever saw Common perform. Like like just fresh and whatever. So like they really do location wise, they really show, in my opinion, the beauty of the city. And we do have some of the nicest beaches. Like you can only enjoy it for like 3 months, maybe 4. But it's a beautiful city. I never really understood what the term beautiful struggle meant until I really started to look at Chicago.
Wow.
And so I get it. Like the struggle is beautiful as long as you're able to overcome it, right? And so right now, like that, again, that's just the dichotomy of the city. And it's been like that for at least since I grew up there. And hopefully you just get to the point where it just becomes beautiful, not the struggle. But, you know, that's obviously going to take some more time, so.
Well, I like the Harold's chicken and mild sauce. I tried the Harold's and the popcorn.
Harris.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta go to the right Harold's though. You can't. I
can't go to the one in Atlanta, right?
I mean, so the ones here, 2 of them are owned by a woman. Who she's from Chicago. She went to Jackson State, and I would not go for the longest. I felt like I was cheating on the crib, but one day. And it was good. So she has 2 locations, one off of Edgewood and then one in Marietta. And so, you know,
I went to the one in Edgewood.
Yeah. So I had to tell one of the people, like, put my bread at the end so I get the sauce all soaked in. But that's just how I liked it. Like like one of the Harold's that everybody came to was the one on 53rd Street in Hyde Park. That's the one I grew up on. You can't go to one that's too clean. I mean, you know, you don't want your food to be dirty, but you got to have one that's kind of like in between, you know. Like before, like Harold's moved, like it was just like literally, it's like this little shack on the corner off 53rd Street, and it wasn't the cleanest. But I mean, we grew up. I mean, you literally had McDonald's right there, the same one that Kells would go to. You literally had McDonald's and you had Harold's, and Harold's was always just as busy too. It just depended on what your budget was looking like as a kid that day. But Harold's, Giordano's, you know, the show is so authentic as far as like you talked about the slang and. So I remember when they were passing out flyers for
Keisha,
what have you, and Jacob's character, I always forget his name, but Jacob's character, Emmett was like, "What up, Joe?" So a lot of people might have thought that the dude's name was Joe, but that's just what we call each other. Like, "What up, Joe? What up, Joe? What up, Joe?" So like, I truly appreciate that the writers took time to be like, this is what we do, this is how we talk, and it is very authentic and organic, even 20-some years later since I was in high school. And
I understand that some of the actors are from Chicago. Like I understand Jake's character is from Chicago. Yeah. Reg is gone now, but I understand Reg is from Chicago. So
what's the name? Papa's girlfriend now, who is Kevin's girlfriend.
Oh, Maisha.
Maisha, she's from. Matter of fact, her mother and I went to college together, and they're from Chicago.
Oh wow.
Kenwood as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's dope to just see Chicago become like this hotbed, kind of what Atlanta already is as far as talent. And it's just for me personally, it's just a phenomenal show. I was really, it's just like maybe somebody doing a documentary on your hometown or your college or something, and you kind of like, I wonder what this is gonna be like. But when I saw like Carmen and Derek were executive producers behind it, I had a lot of faith that they were gonna, keep it organic and show both sides, not just show the ugly, but show the good. And I think that they've done an excellent job at that, and it really makes me proud to be from there, even though I don't like cold weather anymore. So,
I don't either.
I'm never going back. Yes.
I have a question. So how realistic is for somebody to run an after hours in somebody else's restaurant? Like Emmett is doing this.
Hey, black people are creative. I mean,
we are very creative.
That's the hustle.
Yeah, I think that's global. I think that's worldwide. Like black people of color, black people that look like us, like we wouldn't survive.
Well, we find so many ways to get over that wall because there's always a wall in front of us. So we have to find ways to get over it, around it, anything we can do. And that's what I love about Emmett's character because he's just not stopping. He's going to do whatever he has to do. If it's buy food from some other restaurant.
Right. I mean, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so how long you think this partnership with Lala, I'm sorry, I'm drawing
Dom.
How long do you think that partnership is gonna last?
He's gonna smash.
He is. You can see it. The countdown. I already got the hourglass on the table.
Oh no.
Yeah. No. And the next couple but then it's gonna mess up his home life and
the way Dom rolled up in there giving Sonny tips, he didn't.
Oh yeah, Dom
he doing too much. Down.
Yeah, she's the because if Sonny say again.
I said she might be problematic.
Yeah,
she might be because I was like, you blowing up the spot. You making it hot right now. Like, what you doing?
Exactly, because if Sonny rolls up in there one night and sees and happens to see what's going on.
Oh, it's going to happen because that long line, all those people that was there, people gonna talk. Sonny gonna find out.
Yep.
And the
food sounded like it was good. Everybody was willing to wait for the food, so it must have been worth it.
I mean, but
they need to hire more people though.
So look, we can stand in lines that go around 3 blocks to get Popeye's chicken. Yeah, come on, people.
Man, they got seafood places here in Atlanta where people wait for hour. I mean, if you take Slutty Vegan, people be waiting for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So 20 minutes ain't a long line. Like,
for real? Is it that long? I'm following Slutty Vegan on IG. I'm trying to go.
That's why I haven't been, because I'm not that guy. I just won't eat it. I'm not waiting an hour for no food.
I got a guy I went to college with here at Howard, and he lives in Chicago. So I'm planning to head up there, right around August 19th. I'm going.
Yeah, Lawanda went to Howard too.
Yeah, all right. See, that's why we're people. Yeah, but I'm gonna head up there around August 20th. My youngest is heading off to college, so as soon as he's in and settled, wife and I, we're gonna take a trip, start trip.
I can't go to Chicago right now because I'm in Georgia, so they won't let me. I have to be quarantined for 14 days.
Quarantine, yeah.
So I'm mad about that too.
Oh, go ahead, Tiara.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say I have a question for you guys about the show and the ending of this episode, because they were at the vigil and everything, and then you see Ronnie kind of checking out this white guy in the crowd.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's following him, and I was like, okay, he must have seen this guy before. He recognizes him enough to follow him. So what did you guys think about that scene?
Well, Ronnie said to his grandma that he's going to become the hero that he once was, or once that, that she thought he might have been. But so, like I said, I see Ronnie growing up and, getting himself together. And this is what I like. And when I saw that happening, I'm like, okay, he's got something. The question is, what does he know about this white guy? and what does he have to do with the disappearance of Keisha? We're gonna have to find out.
I thought it was because, you know, Ronnie was in the military, so I thought that those instincts kicked in because he noticed that this guy's behavior was a little sketchy,
right?
And then the dude kind of broke out soon as Ronnie started coming over there. So I think he picked up on some, you know,
things. He was looking a little nervous, you know. Like,
out of place too.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
He did look out of place.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I like Ronnie's character because in order for him to, because he took a life, he's gonna have to save a life.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I like, because I keep thinking like, what? There's nothing that he could do to redeem himself because you took his life, particularly a child's life, but
an innocent child's life at
that. And so this might be the one thing that he could do to balance it out, maybe. So we'll see.
Good point.
Yeah. And I think one of my favorite scenes this episode was kind of like that mashup with all of the couples. You had like Trig and Imani and Jada and her date.
Yes.
And you have Papa and Maisha. And that love ballad song by LTD was playing in the background.
That was
like, this was like the best scene because, like, I don't know, it kind of speaks to what you were saying just about the city. I think they've done a very good job of representing the city on the show because, as you know, a lot of negativity is there, but this show really humanizes everybody. Like, all these people have loved ones, you know, they care about each other, they care about their community, and I mean, there is love there. So it's like, it does a really good job of like making everybody realize that, like, yes, it's some wild stuff going on, but these are humans. They love each other. They have love for their families, and they're like, you can't just write people off because, you know, whatever the situation or the reputation of the city, you know, it just really helped me realize that, you know, like, it's a city like anywhere else. And you got to take the good with the bad.
It's funny. I could feel each one's love for the other. You know, it didn't seem phony or act. You know, I could really feel, and like you said, I love that segment too. I think that was one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, me too.
And you know, I was singing along. You know?
Yes,
me too.
That's my jam.
Yeah, and I appreciated Papa's father. Because when he said to Ronnie, like, he let him know that nobody is beyond redemption, especially with God. So I appreciate that.
I like that line when he said, "I'm simply a tour guide." You know?
Tour guide.
Yeah.
That has to be his father in real life. Cause I was looking like, yo, they look.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
I know casting is good, but it can't be that good.
I said, man, he looked just like Papa. Oh, Papa looks like him.
You sure did.
I love Papa's character too, and how he was walking Maisha to school and bought her the breakfast sandwich and everything.
And she said it's hot too.
What? I'm not an animal. He's like, I got class. I know what I'm doing.
I love Papa.
I just really like the balance of the characters, especially between Jake and Kevin and and Papa. You know, and I just think it's just a good. Again, it truly reminds me of how I grew up because, again, like. And I think what makes Chicago so dope is that, like, you might, regardless of where you grew up, like, you will have to engage and intersect with people from kind of all walks of life, all backgrounds. And that is one of the reasons why I just said, you know, growing up in Chicago, like, if I don't grow up the way I grew up in Chicago, there's no way I am able to achieve professionally and even socially what I've been able to achieve, because you get exposed to everything and everyone. And that's why, like, for us, like, going to college, you'll meet somebody, whether, you know, you're at Howard or FAM, and they'll say, oh, I'm from the crib, I'm from Chicago. And you'll be like, the first thing you ask, like, what high school did you go to? Because if you didn't go to high school in Chicago, if you say you went to Oak Park or Rich Central or any of those schools, then you're not from Chicago. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we take it so seriously because there is a certain experience that is attached to growing up in Chicago. The things you have to go through just to survive, the things that you have to deal with day to day, from the police to the gangs to just overall being in Chicago. So you take it very serious when somebody tries to perpetrate and say they grew up at the crib, you know. And so that's really why I like it. And I just want to give a special shout out. So, like, Harold's is not the only spot. Like, there was a spot called Doc's Fish off of 87th Street, off of 87th and Stony. I remember I used to go there every time I went to the dentist. Shout out to Mr. Perry. And then I just want to shout out to Happy's Liquor Store on 79th Street because They so look at the underage kids. Absolutely. They still around too. But I mean, I only got my first 40 ounce when I was like 15. I probably looked like I was 8. Hey, look, it is what it is. So I mean,
I'm ready to say, look.
Hey, but that's the thing. Like when you look at the stores and the people that own those stores that are in our community that did not look like you and I, they didn't care about our kids. So I could go to 79th in Cottage Grove and get a 40 ounce that was probably bigger than me. And all he cared about, he said, do you have money? Do you have money? Yeah, I got money. And that's what, and now when you're a kid, you don't think nothing of it. You're like, I got access to alcohol. But as you get older, you realize that is an issue, that is a problem.
Yeah.
Here's this person who's not of our community selling alcohol to our community, to our kids. So that's why I shout out Happy's.
Oh, so you trying to shut them down?
No, I went on they doing well, but it's probably different ownership. But I just know at 13 or 14 or 15, I was able to go to Happy's and get me my first 40 ounce. So, I mean, that's a problem. You know, when you get older, you like, man, because you start to see how destructive that is to your community.
Right.
I get carded now wherever I go. There's no way I should have been able at that age to buy liquor, but I had money, and that's all they cared about. And that's why it's so important that if we can possibly take back our community, because I can't see a black woman or a black man that knows my mother or my father saying I'm gonna sell alcohol to you. You might get it at the cookout or something like that.
It reminds me of the scene from the show where they're watching the last video of Keisha, and she's talking about how she stole some wine and stuff from the mom's wedding.
Right.
So it was just, it was sad to see that's the last video they have of her. But I mean,
in conclusion with this is, the longer it takes to find her in real terms, the less likely she's going to be found alive.
That's what Trent said. Yeah. And my son seems to think that she's dead. And I was like, don't say that. I mean, it's a real possibility that she is dead. Because he said in a trailer, he alluded to a scene where there's the yellow tape, the crime scene. And I said, well, possibly, but then again, it could be anything. Because I said, I think that there's going to be some real consequences to Trigg and them running up in that house.
Oh, it's got to be.
It's going to be some consequences.
Yeah, because, Trigg said he didn't want to start a war, but looks like you did.
And then you have to factor in Mr. Perry, which is why I also love the show, because Chicago is the only place where you could have a drug dealer or a gang
politician,
gang leader. Yeah. And it literally happened. Like, I remember growing up, we had I won't say his name, but we had somebody that was known as a gang leader on the South Side, and he ran for alderman and won because I mean, it just was what it was. He was that neighborhood, so he decided to run for alderman, and majority of people had probably voted for the first time in their lives, and he became an alderman. And,
unfortunately, I have read that about Chicago. That Chicago is known for having, dirty politicians.
Check out your congressman, your Republican senators.
I mean, it goes from there to the governor. I mean, our last two governors,
Blagojevich
and the governor before him, they are in jail. So that's just what we do in Chicago. We are probably the most corrupt city when it comes to politics. Shout out to Mayor Lightfoot, because I think probably since Harold Washington, she is the city's first mayor that really cares about the people. But prior to her, it's a dirty game in Chicago.
Right. And Tiffany, you ought to remember Frank Rizzo.
Oh, from Philly? Oh, listen, I know. It's not a game. Philly has its share of problems too.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, this has been a really good conversation. I really enjoyed this episode. Do you guys have any predictions for what's coming next?
I started to Google Keisha's name because I wanted to see if she picked her actual name, because I was like, one thing about The Chi, they quick to write characters off, So I was like, maybe she got another job and they had to write her off or something. Because I mean, we all know what Jason and his character went through in real life and why they had to write him. Right? I mean, they didn't waste any time. They was like, you got to go. You got to
him quick.
Yeah, they didn't even tell you why he died. He's just gone.
Well, I saw a clip of the character that played Reg, and he still said he had a lot of love for the show, the cast, and all of that. So he basically implored the fans to continue supporting the Shy and everything. So it didn't seem like
I seen a rumor about him too. A rumor about Reg saying that the reason that he's no longer on the show is because of I guess initially Imani was supposed to be his love interest, and
I heard
declined.
that too.
So I was like, I don't know how true that is, but they definitely got rid of his character.
That writer's room is vicious.
Yeah, it is.
Like, you start tripping when who's got to kill you.
Power to pen.
The power to pen, right.
Well, one thought I had about a prediction, because Jada, she's a nurse on the show, and she had a patient that came in and said that she sees one of the same guys that Keisha was seeing. And so I was like, they didn't put that in here for no reason. Is that going to, lead to some kind of information about where Keisha is?
That's possible. I thought the same thing, because she kind of sucked her teeth when she saw the picture of Keisha. I was like, oh Lord.
It didn't appear to me that she knew that much, honestly, but I just think, as real as this show has been so far, with Keisha being gone for a whole week and they have no clue, I just don't see it plausible how you wind up alive and well. I'm saying that
unless she's being held hostage.
Yeah.
Unless she's being held.
But then
there's so many folks with sex trafficking.
But see, the problem with sex trafficking is that they move you. You're all over the place. You may be in another country. Yeah. And so again, with sex trafficking, as far as I'm concerned, it's either one or the other. You're dead or some sort of sex trafficking, and either way, you're dead. I mean, because you hardly come back from that either.
Yeah, it makes for, I don't want to use the word interesting, but a more lengthy storyline if they find her, because then you have to deal
the trauma
about her dealing with the trauma and how she overcomes that, because that is the more likely story, because that's the thing you see in the news about them finding these girls who are in these homes, or families having to go rescue their girls from these trafficking rings, and just to see how her life would play out. Because death, there are worse things that could, that's going to sound horrible, but there are worse things that could happen to her other than her being killed.
Exactly.
Having to undergo that type of abuse and then have to deal with the aftermath of it. So
look at Centoya Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a survivor, but look what she had to go through.
Yes. But I'm just glad they're spotlighting this issue, because the one thing I wanted to go back to the vigil is I'm glad the mother overcame the negativity and was able to go out there and speak up for her child, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if nobody cares. We have to care. It's going to be us that saves us, whether it's trafficking or any other stuff that's going on. We can't depend on outside people to take care of us. We love us. We know us. We have to be the ones responsible for us, for our safety, for our health, and for caring for our children.
That's true. Yeah. And I like the fact that Kevin showed up, and Dre, Dre went up on stage. That was a good showing. It's been this was actually, I think, I could probably say my favorite episode.
Yep.
Yeah, it does keep getting better and better every week, because I have enjoyed every single episode up until now. So I'm just like, where can they go from here? And then they throw me for a loop. So, a lot of people were skeptical about how the show would be without Brandon's character. And
I was going to say the same thing.
Ball rolling.
The
ball has been rolling.
I wasn't skeptical, because I just knew they was going to have to kill him in Chicago. Unfortunately, have a funeral, keep it moving,
Well, I'm wondering if they're still going to find out from the streets what happened to Brandon, because they don't discuss it. We just see the funeral.
I think they wanted to write him, get him off the show, and have us forget about him so quickly that we probably won't hear about anything else about that character.
It's working.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is working. I kind of agree.
That's true.
That might be from the legal team.
Right.
The legal team wrote it in.
The young lady's character has not returned either at this point as well. So the lady, Jerica, yeah.
Yeah, she left the show.
Right. So I mean, it's no need to even bring them up anymore. They like,
Okay.
But that's just my opinion.
Well, I think you wanted something.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Aaron, for joining us. We definitely have enjoyed your perspective and the insight.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all having me, man. It's really cool to see my just growing up for so many years. You've seen all these other places like LA, Compton, South Central, New York, and other places featured. So it's just really cool to see my city feature how it is, and just to see some of the things, good or bad, that have not changed, and just kind of take me back to how I grew up. And it is good. The writers do a really good job. Again, I was really curious to see how they would portray some, especially the characters that are the characters of color that are men. They're older or young, and I enjoy the balance. I mean, Chicago's not a pretty city when it comes to certain things, but there's so much beauty going on, even with, like I said earlier, even within the struggle, that I feel like they capture that really well. And they, they, even on the South Side and West Side, like there's so many, like I said, the boathouse and the beaches. I mean, there's so much amazing things that are, and pretty things and beautiful things that when you visit, like you don't have to stay downtown. I mean, just be smart, but you don't have to stay downtown to see the culture and to have a good time. So.
Yeah, all these food places you mentioned and got me ready to book a flight.
I mean, you got to get away from downtown and head to the South Side. I never really ventured to the West Side because that is out. When I was growing up, that was just forbidden unless you was going to the Chicago Bulls Stadium or United Center. Like, I mean, you went to the South Side, you went downtown, but you didn't really go to the West Side because, I mean, the West Side didn't really come to the South Side unless it was on some beef stuff. So, but the South Side is a beautiful place. And I'm just thankful that they're showcasing it and showing us in a different light.
Well, I'd like to say that from this point forward, you are now family of the Spot Talk. So, anytime you want to come back,
y'all just let me know. I also, I just want to say this: I'm a huge White Sox fan because I believe, Cubs are North Side. So
aren't you gonna get in trouble? I mean, there's some type of beef to be either a White Sox or a Cubs fan. Like, don't you?
What's interesting? So. Growing up, I played baseball, and I was a Cubs, and I rooted for players. But when I got older, and I really started to see the segregation of the city, and when I came back to Chicago, and I worked for that year and a half, and so I worked at a PR agency, 2 PR agencies, and I was the only Black person, to be completely frank. And all of those other people were Cubs fans, and they were Cubs fans because it was the North Side, it was Wrigleyville. The White Sox, who were winning and had won a championship, or were going to win soon enough, they were looked at as like, oh, you're a White Sox fan because the White Sox won the South Side. The Cubs are the North Side, and that's why I was saying I haven't met too many Black people that have grown up on the North Side. But the Cubs were the North Side, so that was good. That was what mattered. I mean, the Cubs could lose all 162 games and still be revered, because they were on the North Side. And they represented the other Chicago. And, And that drove me absolutely crazy. And so if you see what's happening in the world right now, especially in America, especially in the urban cities, with the Black Lives Matter movement and all this other stuff, like that, part of the reason why, that mentality is happening, because, I mean, I don't care what you say, like, the Cubs and Wrigleyville were so revered because even those people that they probably weren't racist, but the stereotype of what it was to be Black in America or Black in Chicago and living the South Side or West Side was seated in racism. It was like, oh, you live over there with others. And that drove me absolutely nuts. But that's what happens when you don't have diversity. Yeah. So anyway, not to digress, but that's just why I hate the Cubs.
You worked in the entertainment industry and everything too. And I don't know how much you want to talk about that, or if you want to shed light on who you worked with. I don't know if you want to go there or not.
I don't know. I mean, you can share. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've had a very blessed career, to say the least. Like I worked for, so my career stems from me working for 2 global PR firms in Chicago and 2 in New York. And then when I was 25, I left. I took an unpaid internship with Sean Combs, or Diddy, whatever people want to call him, for 18 months, which changed my life. And then I left there and launched my own company, Music Is My Business. And then I did that for 6 or 7 years. We were very blessed. Inc. magazine said we were one of America's smartest new companies. Black Enterprise, CNN, all that good stuff. And then I left that to, one thing I realized in life is that like just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're walking in your purpose. And so I realized that even though I was doing well in the music space, that I wasn't walking in my purpose. And so I walked away from that and I started just focusing on myself, really focusing on speaking, which is what I do now. And I went back to what I went to school for as far as, contributing to different national media outlets and so forth. And I love what I do. I mean, I feel very fortunate that I always say what I do every day is I get to inspire, educate, and entertain. And I put inspire and educate first because of Black people, as people of color, we don't have a problem with entertaining. We don't have a problem entertaining or receiving the entertainment. But I think those other two things are so integral, especially when I look at, Chicago, I look at my city. People are like, well, what's going on? And as much as I love Obama, like I think where we miss the mark all the time is that we're always focusing on the kids, which is important, but I mean, those same kind of programs have been around since I was growing up in Chicago and it never really moved the needle. And one thing I realized, as we all know, is that like, your schools are only as strong as the parental involvement.
Right.
Your kids are only going to be as good to an extent as what's done at home. So that's why I feel like we're missing the mark, not only in just Chicago, but around the country, especially in the Black community, because we're not focusing. It's like you don't put a fire out in the middle or at the top, you put it out at the base. And the foundation of everything has always been the home. So when people ask me, and I've written about it, like, how can we solve this problem in Chicago? Well, you have to start at home. Like, what can we do to help these disenfranchised parents who feel like that they don't have opportunities anymore? They may have made mistakes and maybe they didn't get the second or third chances that I got, but they're still here. So what can we do to help them so that they can help the kids? Because if we take care of our parents, we don't have to worry about the kids anymore. We had 50 schools closed in Chicago several years ago.
Wow.
And people were like, oh, it's racist. Yeah, it was seated in racism. But as soon as all those schools attendance was 50% or below, we gave them the ammunition, And so we just have to be more vigilant. I think the only way to really solve the issues in Chicago is we have to save our parents. If we don't do that, this thing will be continuous, and we'll continuously have 100+ shootings in a weekend, every weekend, as long as it's warm. And we'll be having this conversation forever, unfortunately. So
those are very profound statements coming from a young man such as yourself. So
right. You should tell us how to get in touch with you, your social media.
It's just, I don't know if you can see it on my thing. It's just Aaron Paxton Arnold. AaronPaxtonArnold.com, Aaron Paxton Arnold on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. My Twitter, which I rarely use, is I am Aaron Paxton. And there's actually a street in Chicago named Paxton, so I claim that it was named after me, but it wasn't. But I thank y'all for doing this because it allows. It shows the city of Chicago, what you guys are doing is providing an outlet and a discussion. And Chicago's just a microcosm of what's going on all over the country, especially in our communities. But, because of social media and everything, it is emphasized. But in 1993, when I was growing up, we had 932 or 33 murders in Chicago. And so it wasn't nearly as bad, but the difference is you literally have kids killing kids. Yeah. For the most part, like you had innocent victims of violence, but for the most part, it was gang on gang type stuff. Now you have 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 7-year-olds being killed, like assassinated, like execution style by other kids because those kids are parentless, running the streets wide and they're putting guns in their hands, and it's terrible. So, we have to.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to join us. You were one of the first people I thought of.
I appreciate that, homie.
Yeah, I was like, homie. I said, Aaron will be perfect to talk about this and stuff and give us some insight on the city.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's too cold though. I'll never move back home. I love the shot. I'm sorry, it's just too cold.
All of our Spot Real Talk family, please make sure you go and give Aaron a follow on all of his socials. Check in with him.
Thank you. Thank y'all for what y'all doing too. I really appreciate it. Like just even listening to you guys and you guys just breaking down the episodes, but what it does to me, for me personally, being from Chicago, it just gives it shows that there are people out there that are giving another dynamic and another look to the city outside of what we're seeing nationally from the media, which is in some cases true. But like what you guys said, there is so much more to the city, and I feel like when negative energy begets negative results, so there's balance. Like if you're going to talk about all the killings and things like that, let's talk about all the positive things that are happening with young people in Chicago. There are a lot of young people that are doing a lot of good things, and I'm sure that is weighs on them because they're not necessarily getting the national recognition. Even if you talk about from Kenwood Academy, I mean, I think there was one girl that had the most scholarship money in the country from my high school. So, and you have so many other kids that are doing really well, Black kids that are doing extremely well. So I thank you guys for providing that balance and giving that outlet.
All right. So thank you guys for joining us. Like I said, make sure you give Aaron a follow, and also be sure to follow The Spot Real Talk. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Spot Real Talk. Any closing remarks, Tiffany, Luanda, Ron, Aaron, before we close out?
It's been a good show.
Everybody, thank you, Aaron.
A good show and a great guest.
Looking forward to next week.
Yes, please come back and join us next week where we will do episode 4 of The Shy, season 3. Right. So if there's nothing else, we're gonna call it a night.
All right, y'all be safe.
Bye. It's been good talking to you.
All right, thank you.
Do you believe what they say about afterlife? If you ain't got no stake, why the hell do you need a knife? No breathe, can you breathe? I know it sucks to have a lonely night. I bet you never had the chance to think about your solo flight. About your solo flight.